everyone, so this is my first video of my mental health series. This video is going to be all about anxiety. I decided to choose this video to do first, or this topic to do first, because I probably can relate to this the most out of all the videos I'm going to be doing. Before I start, I'm just going to say that if you have any requests, then comment them down below. I already know I'm going to be doing a video about depression, stress and eating disorders, so if there's anything else you want me to cover, then comment them down below. So I'm going to firstly start off by telling you what anxiety is and some of the symptoms. Anxiety is a normal, if unpleasant, part of life, and it can affect us all in different ways and at different times. Anxiety can make a person imagine that things in their life are worse than they really are and prevent them from confronting their fears. What is important is the recognition that anxiety is normal and exists due to a set of bodily functions that have existed in us from our caveman days. So basically, anxiety is a natural instinct that everyone has, but some people just suffer with it more than others because they don't get anxiety because they think that something is endangering them, like most people get. They get it for various reasons, like probably the most used example is standing up in front of class and doing the speaking. Most people without an anxiety disorder will get nervous like butterflies, but then they will do their speech or whatever they're doing at the front of the class, presentation, whatever, and then they will sit down and they'll be perfectly fine. But people with an anxiety disorder will overthink the whole situation for weeks beforehand. They will get more symptoms that I will cover in a second, and they just generally fear it more than people without the anxiety disorder do. So some of the physical symptoms are increased heart rate, increased muscle tension, jelly legs, tingling in the hands and feet, hyperventilation, which is basically overbreathing, dizziness, difficulty in breathing, wanting to use the toilet more often, feeling sick, tight band across the chest area, tension, headaches, hot flashes, increased perspiration, sweating, dry mouth, shaking, choking sensations and palpitations. Just because you may have some of these physical symptoms when you're doing a group presentation in front of the class or a speech or whatever, doesn't mean that you have an anxiety disorder. If you think that you may have an anxiety disorder, go and see a doctor or get help or something. Don't just assume that you have an anxiety disorder just because you may have some of these symptoms every once in a while. Most people that have an anxiety disorder will get these symptoms at least once or twice a week. I know I do personally, but that's just personal experience. But yeah, if you are worried about having an anxiety disorder, then I would recommend you go and get help. Some of the psychological symptoms in your brain are thinking that you may lose control and or go mad, thinking that you may die, thinking that you may have a heart attack, be sick, faint, have a brain tumour, feeling that people are looking at you and observing your anxiety, feeling as though things are speeding up / slowing down, feeling detached from your environment and people in it, feeling like you want to run away and escape from the situation, and feeling on edge and alert to everything around you. So when I get anxiety, then I normally get quite a lot of the symptoms. I get most of the physical symptoms and some of the psychological symptoms. The psychological symptoms I get are the feeling that people are looking at you, which is mostly linked to my social anxiety. Feeling detached from your environment and the people in it. Basically, I just completely zone out and I just don't know what's going on anymore or anything like that. I just completely lose focus. I can't hear anything that's going on around me. I'm literally just focusing on myself and on my panicking, which makes me panic even more and stuff. Feeling like wanting to run away and escape from the situation. I get this a lot, and I think that the best thing to do is if you're having a panic attack or an anxiety attack, then you should get out of the situation. So like say you were in the classroom and you started to have an attack, then just ask your teacher like discreetly if you can leave. and then like just take a bottle of water and just have some time out, and like just focus on your breathing. I have this special card that lets me leave class. It gives me permission to leave class. So if you could speak to someone like your form tutor or your head of year or someone like that, or your equivalent, and ask if you could get like a timeout card, because I know that some teachers won't let you out, or they won't let you leave without a reason, and then you're kind of like freaking out, so you're not really in the frame of mind to be telling them. So it's a lot easier just to give my card and then they know that I can leave. And also my head of year emailed all my teachers saying that like I have problems and stuff and that I'm allowed to leave, and yeah, so maybe that's something that you could do. Also, when you leave class, do breathing exercises. These definitely help so much. I have 2 types of breathing exercises that I use. One of them is the 4x4 breathing. Basically, you breathe in through your nose, counting to 4, and then you breathe out through your mouth, counting to 4. And then the other one is you breathe in and count to 4, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and breathe out of your mouth for 8 seconds. But I saw it on Instagram and I started using it, and it definitely helps me, so I hope it helps you. And also the 4x4 breathing is what my counsellor told me to do. So now I'm going to go through some of the types of anxiety disorders there are. Firstly, I'll say what ones I have. I have panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, generalised anxiety disorder. So there are panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, which is OCD, post-traumatic stress disorder, social anxiety disorder, specific phobias, and generalised anxiety disorder. Panic disorder is people that have feelings of terror that strike suddenly and repeatedly with no warning. Other symptoms of a panic attack include sweating, chest pains, palpitations, and a feeling of choking, which may make the person feel like he or she is having a heart attack. Obsessive compulsive disorder is people that are plagued by constant thoughts or fears that cause them to perform certain rituals or routines. The disturbing thoughts that are called obsessions and the rituals are called compulsions. An example is a person with an unreasonable fear of germs who constantly washes his or her hands, which is probably the most used example. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a condition that can develop following a traumatic and or terrifying event, such as a sexual or physical assault, the unexpected death of a loved one, or a natural disaster. People with post-traumatic stress disorder often have lasting and frightening thoughts and memories of the event and tend to be emotionally numb. Social anxiety disorder is also called social phobia, and this involves an overwhelming worry and self-consciousness about everyday social situations, i.e. like being in a classroom full of loads of people. The worry often centres on a fear of being judged by others or behaving in a way that might cause embarrassment or lead to ridicule. Specific phobias is an intense fear of a specific object or situation, such as snakes, heights, or flying. The level of fear is usually inappropriate to the situation and may cause the person to avoid common everyday situations. Generalised anxiety disorder. This disorder involves excessive, unrealistic worry and tension, even if there is little or nothing to provoke the anxiety. So I think that I suffer with panic and generalised anxiety disorder the most because I panic a lot in situations like when I went to Thorpe Park. I went on Soar for the first time and I had a panic attack on the roller coaster, which was not fun. But sometimes, like if I'm sitting in a classroom, I will just start panicking for no reason and I'll have to leave. That happened once before. Basically the whole class was just shouting at each other and I just started panicking. I think that was probably caused it, but I don't know why the shouting would have caused me to panic, because I don't normally panic at that sort of stuff. Now I'm just gonna read out some things that I have on my phone, some pictures. These are basically just around mental health in general, not just anxiety. 1 in 5 teenagers have thought about suicide. About 1 in 6 teenagers have made plans for suicide, and more than 1 in 12 teenagers have attempted in the last year. As many as 8 out of 10 teenagers who have committed suicide try to ask for help in some way before committing suicide. These figures are really shocking because I feel like that this just shows how much of a taboo mental health is, and that people don't realise how much of a big thing it is. Like, they just think that no one suffers it and that they don't need to worry and that it's rare, but it's really not. Like, loads of people suffer it, and I've got more statistics coming up. This is probably my favourite picture that I've ever found. It's kind of a quote, but it's quite long. That's the stigma, because unfortunately we live in a world where if you break your arm, everyone runs over to sign your cast, but if you tell people you're depressed, everyone runs the other way. That's the stigma. We are so accepting of any body part breaking down other than our brains, and that's ignorance. And that ignorance has created a world that doesn't understand depression, that doesn't understand mental health. I have a picture here, and it basically just shows the brain. If you have depression, if you can't see that, then I'll put it up here. This is just basically like what people think the anxiety is versus what it actually is. Social anxiety is an OMG, I hate people, lol, I wish I was sleeping and watching Netflix. It's I want desperately to be able to hang out with people, but I hate the feeling of sheer panic and fear I get around them, so I don't/can't, and it eats away at me every day, so I end up just staying at home and saying I'm sleeping or watching something. I sprained my finger and can't play gym. Teacher: okay. I have an anxiety disorder and can't do my speech in front of the class. Everybody gets nervous. Get up there. So that's basically another thing that people don't understand. Your brain not working, but if your arm or your leg doesn't work, then people find it completely acceptable, which is quite horrible. Now this is just some facts about social anxiety. People who suffer from social phobia or social anxiety are often so terrified to be among other people that they are inclined to withdraw from social interaction completely. Males and females are affected equally with this disorder. People with social anxiety disorder often suffer anticipatory anxiety, the fear of a situation before it even happens, for days or weeks before the event in many cases. The person is aware that the fear is unreasonable, yet is unable to overcome it. I've been suffering this at the moment because I have my English speaking and listening, and it's only in front of one person, it's only in front of my teacher, but I'm still getting nervous about it because I did it last time and I was really panicking about it. This is my retake because it wasn't long enough, so I didn't get the grade. And now I'm just panicking because obviously last time it messed up, so I'm just having that fear that I'm going to mess up again, and it sucks. Some situations that commonly trigger anxiety include speaking in public, eating or drinking in front of others, writing or working in front of others, being the centre of attention, going to parties or social events, talking on the telephone. I suffered the writing in front of others because if like a teacher's watching me whilst I work, I will just not write anything in case I get it wrong, and then the teacher's like starts having a go at me for getting it wrong. Now just some general statistics about mental health. 8 out of 100 teens report having serious depression. That's 2 out of every 5 teens. 8% of all teens have an anxiety disorder. 5% have ADD, which is attention deficit disorder. 3% have ODD, oppositional deficiency disorder. 1% have OCD. Only 38% with mood disorders receive help. Only 15% with substance abuse problems get the help they need. Only 13% of eating disorder sufferers get help. Over 20% of young adults have a mental health illness. 35% of teenage girls have an eating disorder. That's 7 out of every 25 teens. 10% of all teens suffering from an eating disorder are male. 4,000 young Canadian teens commit suicide every year. I don't know any other statistics, that's just what the picture's saying. 1 in 5 will get the help that they need, which is quite shocking because if there wasn't such a taboo about mental health, then people would probably feel more able to get help, because they won't feel that they're being judged, or that they won't feel that they're alone. So basically this video is just this series really is just me trying to get people to receive the help that they need, and just to make sure that you realise that you are not alone, you aren't the only one that will suffer from a mental health problem, and that don't be afraid to get help, because therapists and counsellors are out there and trained for a reason. They are out there for you to get help, and they are there to help you. But society has just created this whole big thing about it, that if you have mental health disorder you're crazy and all that stuff, which just puts people off. But seriously, if you do think that you have a mental health problem, then go and get help. Go get a counsellor, talk to a teacher at school, talk to a doctor, parents, anyone that you trust really, and just get help, because you're not alone. And if you ever want to chat, then you should message me on Instagram. Yeah, that's basically all I have to say for this time. So yeah, remember, if you have any requests of any mental health problems you want me to talk about, leave them in the comments below, and I will see you next week with more help.